Let's look at specific example of California in terms of climate action for mitigation. California has a history of assembly bills and Senate bills aimed at reducing emissions, which were born out of air quality problems that started way back in the 1940s and 50s and were actually pretty bad. So they were not always called climate mitigation as such, but it's a good idea because they were focused on human health. Global warming became controversial basically because of the magnitude of warming is so small compared to the daily change because of weather or seasonal changes and so on. But human health impacts always hit home, as we saw in the social transformation, social action, social climate change, where we said climate change and human health could be used as an example to go local and get personal. Right? This is a good example of that. So we'll run through the few things that are already known about climate change. California has got a very unique geography. It's stretching north-south essentially along the cold Pacific Ocean here, and it's the east coast, and there is upwelling here. It's cold temperatures, which itself makes this place pretty cool and dry, but this is also under the so-called sinking part of the Hadley cell, where you get the deserts, ocean and land deserts, because when air sinks, you don't have rain, you have clear skies, nice weather, which is useful for saving energy. For example, you don't need a lot of energy for cooling and heating homes. So there is a geographical advantage, but it also comes with this dry weather, and then you load it up with people and huge economic and agricultural activities. That can be a bad combination. So this is data on area burned by California wildfires in thousands of square kilometers here on this axis versus time from 1972 to 2018, so fairly recent. You can see that the area burned now have a huge season from May to September, October to December. The area burned is going up. There is a contribution from global warming and the California droughts to this, plus human action like living closer and closer to the woods, and there are details about whether human management of the forest of the wildfires actually makes them worse and so on. Okay, nonetheless, the combination of climatologically dry weather, the rapid warming, which sucks up soil moisture and makes the vegetation into a solid fuel for wildfires, which can be natural, but there have been some cases of arson as well. Okay, here are some general issues of climate change over California, from Sierra snowpack to sea levels along the California coast. Climate change is already having a significant impact on our environment. The new indicators of climate change in California report tracks 36 indicators of a changing climate across the state. Okay, so this is a graphic representation of the north, central, and southern coast, Central Valley, and the Sierra Nevada. Snow in here, for example, is a big part of the water resource system for California, which is having problems in terms of snow melt, which we will see in a minute. Agriculture, directly affected by climate change and warming, but it's not even clear California should be such a heavy agricultural state anyways, considering it's but in the north there's actually plenty of water. It's the south that gets much more dry. Okay, fires, glacier melts, extreme heat events, and ocean acidification. Okay, sea level rise is an issue as well for many of the states. So it's a rich state. If it were an independent country, it's always said that it would be the 5th largest economy in the world as a if it were a state. So that makes it a kind of a rich place to try to impose limitations, right? But does this come with climate justice and equality? We'll see that there are issues. Okay, so this is some data on snowpack following dry January. Statewide Sierra Nevada snowpack, which is a big part of the water system, as I said. 1/3 of California's water supply was at 72% of its historic average on Thursday, which is here in January 30th. So it's at 72%. So you can see that the average is up here, and there have been, like 2015-16 was an El Nino year, and typically you expect huge snowstorms, rainstorms, and so on over California. Even though it was a monstrous El Nino, actually it didn't produce that much excess rain over California. But 2016-17 winter produced massive amount of snow, and there was a La Nina going on. So is that because of global warming, that the teleconnections we expect from natural modes like El Nino and La Nina didn't behave the way they were expected to? Well, it's too early to say. It's only one example. Okay, California's historical and projected July temperature increase compared to the baseline 1961. Sorry, this is going projections and historic data from 1961 out to 2099. The baseline is typically 1961 to 1990, which is shown here. Okay, so it's been pretty warm. So July temperature increase, you can see that it's expected to get worse in the near term, which is 2035 to 2064, and the longer term. You can see that the Central Valley here is going to start cooking at more than 100 degrees in July, and this is the July average temperature. You can see just the average, but the spikes within those are going to be much worse. And of course this region is climatologically warm anyways, and it's going to get much worse. Okay, along with that we have to see what would happen to the rainfall patterns as well. So that's the context for California's climatology, climate variability, and climate change. It has a huge El Nino signal and the La Nina signal, which behaved strangely in the last big El Nino of 2015-16 and the La Nina of 2016-17. The related issue is that if global warming makes the East Pacific colder, there is a huge debate which we haven't touched on in this course about whether with global warming the cold-warm contrast in the tropical Pacific will get stronger or weaker. Climatologically cool East Pacific, the cold tongue around Galapagos, provides the subsidence over California and makes California dry climatologically. If global warming makes the Pacific look like a La Nina, then obviously California is going to suffer continued droughts and so on. And in the past there are examples of the civilizations going extinct, like the Mayas and Incas and so on, which are related to such persistent La Nina cool dry patterns. So that also has to be kept in mind, because California's population continues to grow. Economic activities are obviously very strong, but it's a service industry, as we will see. Plus it also always sits on the Andreas fault line, which is supposed to cause a huge earthquake at some point. So it's kind of a funny place to be in, and yet it's one of the most prosperous places.